There's a range of different types of cases out there on the market. If you need something specific, then it probably already exists, one way or another. But the HAF 700 BERSERK? Well, that has more than most. Its design is innovative, slick, and it has a consumer's best interest in mind by adding features that makes building in it extremely easy, which in turn makes my job easier too. But before we get into that, here's a quick word from this video sponsor.
Andy, what are you watching?
It's not what you think.
Wow, it's so big!
Why, thank you. It's the new AOC AG493 UCX, 49 inches of pure performance and a refresh rate of 120 Hz. It's so fast. You can even do 2 at a time.
What?
You can connect 2 devices at a time and split the screen. With FreeSync Premium Pro, a 32:9 aspect ratio and a built-in KVM, you'll be finished in no time. Gaming, I mean. What did you think I mean? Get your mind out the gutter and click the link in the description to find out more. So Cooler Master have released this, the HAF 700 BERSERK. And it does live up to that name because it is a beast. This case is up there with one of the biggest I've seen, with plenty of features to satisfy anyone's needs. Now, you may remember that Cooler Master released the HAF 700 EVO, which was a big step up from the kind of sub £100 or $100 cases we've seen from them over the last couple of years. This kind of broke the mould in terms of design, features and price. Now, not everyone wants to spend nearly £500 or $500 on a case, so the BERSERK strips a few things away and comes in at a slightly cheaper price, which we'll get to a little bit later on. So starting with the literal elephant in the room, is huge. The amount of space in this case is something any gamer could only dream of, but not anymore, with 15 fan mounting locations out of the box, so you should have no problem cooling all of your high-end components when they're working hard. In addition to all the fan space, the case does actually come with some included fans, 4 to be exact. 2 120mm fans in the rear, which is definitely an interesting design choice. 1 dedicated GPU fan at the bottom, which doubles up as a rotatable radiator bracket, which can be angled to show off your fans and rad if you want, making it kind of perfect for modders who want to display their work. And finally, we get 2 giant 200mm fans in the front, which take up the whole front panel, which I admit does look amazing in full RGB goodness. And we all know the more RGB the better the system, right? Right? Alongside the 15 fan mounting locations, the HAF 700 BERSERK also supports up to 15 3.5 inch or 2.5 inch drives in a variety of locations, whether you want them in the hard drive cage or behind the radiator mount or near the front of the case, or even on the bottom, and they're all tool free. According to Cooler Master, the HAF 700 truly has no limits when it comes to hardware support. It also comes with a fully integrated PWM ARGB Gen 2 hub, which allows you to control the speed and RGB of all of the fans and devices. And for people that game in a sauna, you can set the included Performance Edition sickle flow fans to 11 to really keep those hot temperatures down. Space doesn't stop there either, as the HAF 700 really does allow for the largest components with no compromise. And because of this, the BERSERK, which I'll still never get used to that name, can house up to oversized EEB motherboards and with any GPU you like. I mean, we've got an RTX 3090, which isn't exactly small. They can be mounted horizontally for the traditional look, but for the more adventurous people out there, you can mount it vertically with Cooler Master's Universal Vertical GPU version 3 mount. So we decided to put our 3090 in on the vertical GPU mount, and I've got to admit, inside this case, it looks a little bit like a baby. The cool thing in terms of GPUs definitely comes down to the toolless design, where it has 2 kind of levers to hold cards in place while the other lever is open, in case you're installing other expansion cards, though you still have the ability to screw expansion cards down for that kind of extra peace of mind, especially if you're traveling. Not that I'd want to even lift this. Now, even with all these other giant components inside, the enormous amount of space also allows for any ATX PSU length to nicely fit into its dedicated spot around the back of the case, with plenty of room to hide those wires out of view. It's also, yep, you guessed it, toolless to install through pins that kind of hold it in place and 2 thumb screws all conforming to the ATX standard layout. There's also a large amount of grommets to feed wires through to the back of the case out of sight, allowing you to cable manage to your heart's content. And to make life kind of even easier, there are included cable quick clips, which is kind of Cooler Master's way of I don't know, improving upon Velcro cable ties, and this helps to keep things nice and tidy. Now, size aside, the biggest thing about this case comes down to, while you're installing all of these components, the only tool you actually need, essentially, to a certain degree, is your own two hands. All modular mounts in this case are tool-free, with buttons and levers firmly locking things into place, even down to the drive cages, although you can still get your eTeknix PC toolkit for other things should you need it. Available on store.eteknix.com. In addition to these features, 5 of the modular mounts include integrated pump and reservoir mounting for those water cooling fanatics among us. And speaking of those who do want to water cool, this case has you covered. You'll be pleased to know that the HAF 700 BERSERK can house up to 2 360mm rads in the top, 1 480mm rad in the side, 1 420mm rad in the front, though you will need to obviously swap the fans out, 1 420mm rad in the bottom, and even, really weird, a single 240mm rad in the rear. I mean, come on, that's pretty crazy. It is worth noting that you'll kind of be slightly restricted with having the side rad and the top rad that's closest to the PSU side in at the same time, so just keep that in mind, though it's not like you don't have other choices in the rest of the case anyway. Either way, keeping things cool should be a breeze. See what I did there? I'll see myself up. Now, with strong airflow and up to 15 fans, that's a lot of intake. So to maximise it, Cooler Master have implemented the revamped Fine Mesh V2 that lines the top and the side panels to kind of prevent any unwanted dust from entering your rig, and are easily accessible for maintenance and cleaning. On the bottom of the case, there's kind of more than enough when it comes to the heavy duty dust filter that spans from front to back, and it simply pulls out from the side. Now for the I/O, and again, the BERSERK doesn't disappoint, with 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports, 1 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C, and dedicated mic and headphone jacks. I can't imagine anyone needing more than that on a case for this price, which I will get to shortly. So I think it's safe to say the HAF 700 does what it kind of sets out to do. It's huge, and that allows for more space for your components, and more space to actually build in. And I kind of have to admit, building in it was super easy. So I said it was toolless, but obviously installing a motherboard does require screws, like you'd get with, frankly, any case. And the same for radiator mounting. But beyond that, it really is toolless. It all just kind of makes it easy, and an experienced builder could probably have things done easily in, say, less than 30 minutes. Obviously, the more fans, drives and whatnot you install, the longer it would take, that goes without saying. All in all though, it was easily one of the easiest systems I've had the pleasure to build it. The only real issue we had came down to multiple maxed out rads and their placement when looking at all of the kind of options. But as I mentioned, it's very unlikely that a builder is going to max that out, especially as 4 360mm rads would fit with no issue whatsoever. So the moment you've all been waiting for, the performance. But first, if you'd like to know more about how we test, then we do actually have a video linked down below going through our kind of testing methodology for cases, the hardware we use, and how we do it. So definitely check that out. So taking a look at our CPU temperature, and at idle it was near the top of the chart. However, it did run slightly warmer than the Fractal Torrent. At max load under Prime 95 and Firmark, we saw the temperatures rise to actually the exact same temperatures as the NZXT H7 Elite, both now at 64.1 degrees. So still at reasonable levels against most of the other cases tested today. For our GPU at idle, we see it being one of the better performing cases with a temperature of 31.7 degrees. However, at load, it's a different story, coming in at 48.9 degrees. It actually ends up sitting in the middle of the pack with, I guess, nothing really special to show, following just behind the Fractal Pop Air, which we've reviewed on the channel, so go check that out. Though it does sit at the middle of the pack, I'll be honest, at 48.9 degrees during a simulated max load, it's still exceptionally good with kind of nothing to worry about. Our chipset at idle was running cooler than most cases in the stack with an idle temperature of 34.5 degrees. This sees it sitting behind the Fractal Torrent once again and the NZXT H7 Elite. At load, it does well and places third with a solid temperature of 52.8 degrees. Our M.2 at idle was middle of the stack with a respectable 39.4 degrees, but in comparison to the other cases, didn't exactly stand out. At load, we saw a very similar placement with the HAF 700 sitting in the middle, closely fighting the NZXT H510 Flow. Simulated worst case scenario load out the way and looking at gaming performance. Our CPU temperature was close to being the best of the bunch, with a result of 40.5 degrees, placing it again just below the Fractal Torrent case, which is in first place, though only by 0.3 of a degree, so it could be argued margin of error. Our GPU actually loses a place to another fractal case, this time being the Pop Air, but only by 0.1 of a degree. With temperatures of 45.8, it comfortably takes third place in the stack, and is only just under 2 degrees warmer than the Fractal Torrent, which tops our chart. Our chipset results finally show the HAF 700 in first place, with a result of 38.6 degrees, putting it above all the other cases in the list, and in some cases by quite some margin. What's interesting is that the case that followed closely is actually an open air test bench, so this test is clearly more significant than the others that we tested. Finally, our M.2 SSD fares pretty well at 41.6 degrees, although this means it sits in the middle of the stack with, again, nothing special to show, and again places right behind the Fractal Pop Air. Okay, so let's break it down. Performance was good. We saw the HAF 700 keep kind of top places above most of the other cases tested. However, it's kind of clear to see that it was a better performer under load. We really see all the fans do their job and keep the large amount of space in this case kind of well ventilated. Now with all these fans, noise is going to be a concern, but looking at the acoustics, the HAF 700 was, to no surprise, on the noisier side of the list, sitting above only the NZXT H7 Elite. Yes, some of the other cases come with less fans, so of course they're going to be quieter, but that's, I guess, the trade-off when focusing on noise versus temperatures. At idle, the HAF 700 sits between the H7 Elite and the Fractal Pop Air, while at load, the H7 Elite is the noisiest out of all the cases tested. But at 46.8 decibels, with headphones and other background noise, I think these are very respectable results. And given kind of so much choice for fan placement and the ability to control all fans individually, I'm sure you'll be able to find a decent trade-off, like we were able to with the new Mobius fans that we installed. Whereas during testing, we used the stock config on default settings to give kind of the fairest test possible. Okay, so what do I think? It's a tough one because out of all the cases we've had in lately, this is a bit of an anomaly, purely because it's so different to all the other cases we've had. Luckily, I like big cases because they give the brand a bit more scope and flexibility to try new things out, and it allows them to do things that are a little more, let's say, out there. And with a price of $349.99 in the UK and $249 in the US, plus taxes and shipping, it's not cheap, but it doesn't feel like you're being taken for a ride. I mean, it's expensive, but you get a lot for your money. So I guess value for money wise, it's about kind of where I'd expect it to be. Sure, performance is better on the likes of the Fractal Torrent, which is a large case too, and offers a lot of features, but I don't really consider it as being quite up there with the HAF 700, which I'd consider in the same realm as the Corsair 1000D or InWin 928 Super Tower, which are both more expensive, and by quite some margin. I will admit, though building in it was easy for a veteran builder like myself, I kind of feel like a novice builder, I don't know, may just get a little bit confused or overwhelmed with some of the tallest features. And in typical fashion with most case manufacturers, the manual isn't the greatest out there, let's put it that way. So ideally, I wouldn't recommend it to someone building their first PC, but I don't think someone building their first PC would actually be buying this. And that's purely for two reasons. It's a bit complicated for you, and secondly, and probably more importantly, it's overkill for the majority of consumers out there. For the ones who know what they want, are happy to see it as a bit of a learning curve and, I don't know, maybe want a gaming PC that's fully tricked out with fans or the biggest components and potentially even a pretty slick water-cooled build, then yeah, right now the HAF 700 is a great choice. But be warned, without components, it weighs a lot. And with them, it's pretty berserk. So maybe that's where the name came from, who knows. For now, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Does the sheer size of it, I mean, come on, it's huge. Does the sheer size make this worth the money to you? You have to admit, you do get a lot of case for your money, and it doesn't feel cheap anywhere either. And yeah, let me know, do you like the features, like the tallest modular mounts? Do they kind of, take your fancy? So there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, a like and a sub to the channel would be amazing. And if you love what we do, consider supporting us over on Patreon. The link for that is down below. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye bye.